Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Hope Connection podcast. This is a special treat as we get to welcome our very first guest to the podcast, an old friend of mine that's an amazing agent of hope. And we've got an exciting story for you all to hear about. I'm going to welcome my good friend, Melissa Martinez, to the podcast. And Melissa, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an exciting event and experience.
Thank you. As in the introduction, I shared that we worked together many moons ago, gotten lots of fun actions together, saw lots of neat people in hospice work. And so, Melissa, before we kind of jump in further, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about your family?
Okay, I am a nurse. I've been nursing for about 37 years now, and I have three children, two grown sons, and four grandchildren. And then we have a daughter who's 22, and she lives with us still. Has she's a person with disabilities. She has cerebral palsy and some other challenges, and but she is a blessing and a joy, and she loves the Lord.
Beautiful. And
And
if you've ever seen a picture of Melissa and her family, they've all got smiles that light up the light up the universe. And you and your husband Joel are getting ready for a pretty big adventure in the next few weeks. You're gonna leave the Denver metro area and head off to South Africa. Could you just to share a little bit about what that looks like? And in the process, maybe you can kind of share how you'll be integrating some of your nursing experience and some of your ministry experience as well.
yes, yeah, we are. We This has been a journey for us, to say the least. We had been missionary associates a long time ago, and then we have done other things stateside. But now it's time to go back. We are searching and seeking God on what was next. We thought initially it was just to continue living here and get on with life, and nothing as hard, especially ministry minded. However, God had something different, and we did take a trip to South Africa to do some exploration and to see if that what we were sensing was truly God, or if it was just our wanting to get back to South Africa. And God confirmed it on so many levels. It was amazing, the people He put into our lives and the connections we made from the time we landed to the airport to the time we left to the airport. We ran into people that had special needs children or people with disabilities in their home or they knew of, and it just confirmed the need. So of course, COVID kind of shut things down. We just got back from South Africa about 2 weeks before they closed everything down, and I ended up getting sick for about a month. Which I suspect was COVID, but who knows? But anyway, and so we spent the 2 years kind of, like everybody else. But then this came back to us, and we knew it was time. So this last year has been especially busy. We sold our house. We moved out of our into an apartment where we sold one vehicle. We have others, so we were cleaning out all our stuff, and so now we are at that point where we're moving out of the apartment, and we'll be hopefully leaving mid-March to South Africa. And it has been an adventure, to say the least. There's been ups and downs and questioning and needing God to remind us, is this really you? So, and Faith, it's been interesting. She was semi-okay moving out of the house, but this next move out of the apartment has stressed her, which I'm not surprised, because she likes to know what's happening before it happens,
Yeah.
which we don't know. So,
I know I can
so
relate.
that's
Wouldn't it be nice to have a little forewarning of what's ahead?
yes, yes.
That's awesome.
So, and then once we do, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. So fill us in now. You have had this long-standing kind of neat intersection of ministry work in and out of churches, and I know that you and your husband have a love for kind of the country and the rodeo world, and have done all sorts of neat things. How do you see your 30 plus years of nursing and this ministry mindset that you and your husband share? How do you see that coming together as you begin with empowered beyond limits? And tell us a little bit more about that.
I'll start with Empower Beyond Limits. Is
Yeah.
we started the 501c3. It is we are not connected to a church. We are our own body. And right now we have some board members and ourselves. So it's a small gathering or connection. And we have felt led, and I thought it would be stateside, but we felt led to start sharing the gospel with people with disabilities. What are their spiritual needs being met? And how are churches adapting and making their churches open and welcoming to people with disabilities? And we living it, we found that it was lacking in several areas, which surprised me to some extent. And then, so that's why we're going to South Africa to uh, for people and with people with disabilities, so that we can enlighten the church and bring about awareness of their spiritual needs, that they too can serve in the church. They too need to know Christ as their Savior. And so as that goes forward, when we land, it'll be a lot of, we're going to be gathering with our partners. We do have South African partners,
Mm.
and we'll be gathering with them. But how it intersects is been amazing, because I kind of figured my nursing was going in the background, but in fact, it's coming forward again. And we're for the making pastors and churches aware. That will be mostly Joel's side of things, to speak to the leaders of churches and the boards and that, and because that's his giftings. And I myself, I like to be on the hands-on. We hope to
Mhm.
go where people with disabilities are, because oftentimes they're hidden,
Mm.
and we felt called specifically to the rural areas
Mm.
because they had the least accessibility to things. And also, just recently, our partners have ventured up into a new tangent of ministry that they want us to be a part of, and that's doing ultrasounds on pregnant mommies, and so that they can see their babies, with hopes that they could make an informed decision to help that baby live and not abort the child. And
Mhm.
so I went for training in a miraculous way to do ultrasounds, and so I am very excited about that. So that's something that's just blown me out of the water. That excites me.
That's so neat. Could you, I think a lot of us probably don't have a really good understanding of just some of the challenges. Even, South Africa, is a country that's probably foreign to a lot of us, and as well as even the needs of folks who are living with disabilities, here in the States. Could you, enlighten us a little bit about some of what you've seen both firsthand in your own family, and now that you've kind of seen this vision across the states, across the globe, for what are some of the struggles, what are some of the real tangible obstacles and struggles that folks who are living with disabilities are facing?
I think the biggest thing we found was Faith, as she started getting older and growing, that there was not an accessibility to even her Sunday school class. There were stairs. There was never even an option for an alternative. So they carried her in her wheelchair up and down stairs for a while. And the churches do not have to, by law, make their churches accessible. They only do it because they want to. So they don't get any. So whereas other places do, and even other places don't make it accessible.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest. I mean, going shopping, the aisles are so narrow we can't get through with her wheelchair. Um, there's one step into stores, and I know some of them are older buildings, but they don't even think that someone in a wheelchair would like to go in to buy taffy or something like that.
Mhm.
And then the churches just don't know how to approach someone with disabilities. We started going to a church, and it was a small, it had been meeting in a school for a long time, but I was introduced by a friend to a few, but they never reached out to Faith. And we talked with our pastor, a connection pastor, and he said, I looked at Faith and never thought that she was understanding or that she could talk,
Mhm.
but no one even tried talking to her.
Yeah.
And so after that time, and they learned that she was quite intelligent and has a great sense of humor. He and her bonded, and they were buddies now. And but she also has a speech device that she could talk. It uses to talk with, and but yeah, that's just everyday life. And buses. We recently went on a trip, and they were picking us up in at the airport in Houston, and they went to Marriott Hotel, and they did not have a bus that was accessible for a wheelchair.
Mhm.
I was blown away. And that was most disturbing recently because they should have. There's
Yeah.
no excuse for that. So that was a challenge, getting her into the bus, uh, and then figuring out where to put her chair. So those kinds of things, just everyday things.
Yeah.
We don't think about bathrooms. They'll have the button to open the door to go to the bathroom, but they don't have the button on the other side, so you can't get out.
Mm.
And simple, part things, and people
Yeah.
don't live with it. This really came home to me as I was in a wheelchair some years back for a short period of time, and I would go with a group of people, and they were talking, and they talked over me and about me, where it was Melissa, and I was right there in the chair because they don't look down,
Mhm.
and those kinds of things. Or people mistakenly say people that need to be fed are babies. I know it's in
Mm.
context of a sermon, but Faith was very offended by that. She was
Mhm.
upset because she heard them calling her a baby and she's not. So I did speak with the pastor and let him know that was disturbing for Faith, and that people or adults need help with eating and all other
Mhm.
bodily cares.
Mhm.
So those education is a big part of what we do and live with.
Yeah. Boy, you don't even quite realize until even just hearing you talk about the simple everyday things that we all just look past, take for granted, don't
Mhm.
realize some of those complications. And that, that must have been really disheartening for Faith as a young woman growing up to have people kind of looking beyond her. And then, you got a sense of what that was like yourself. Um, one of my premises, one of my hopes is just to really encourage people to bring just to bring love and faith, hope, and love, really, as the
Mhm.
scripture gives us, these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. Really to see all three, raised up in our own homes. And then,
Mhm.
the mission field that starts right as soon as we walk out our front door.
Mhm.
And sometimes as we start walking out our front door, sometimes we, head to the airport and we catch a plane and we go to another front door that's thousands of miles away.
Mhm. Yes.
But could you talk a little bit about just how you as a family, um, sounds like you all have been really intentional about with a young woman who you've seen grow for 22 years in your own home, who has some physical, limitations, but has enormous giftings and abilities beyond, the physical side of things. Could you talk about how you all as a family kind of focused on raising up faith, hope, and love in spite of some of these difficult things in your own home?
Oh, in some ways it was very easy. Faith has brought so much to our lives. I can't even imagine life without her. She brought love. She brought challenges. She brought humor. She accepted the Lord at the age of 4. She knew what she wanted and she understood it. And then all through the years that we've watched her mature in the Lord, especially the last few years. But we encouraged that. We took her where we went. We involved her. She mostly was around adults,
Mhm.
but and she was in. We purposely and every chance. I mean, she was all of us. It was 1 and 3 kind of thing. You get Faith, you get all of us, you know. And and she's been the star. They don't remember me, but they do remember
Yeah.
Faith. And so, but yeah, just day-to-day life, and it became easy. And Joel has become her primary caregiver,
Yeah.
partly because I was working full-time, and it just kind of happened that way. And as she's gotten bigger and older and uh, grown, I can no longer transfer her. So he does
Mhm.
99% of it, and I help out here and there. And that was, I think, our one biggest challenge as she became a young woman, how that was going to work in taking care of her.
Mhm.
and it's worked out well, better than I expected.
Mhm.
And it just kind of flows now. So she knows faith. She knows what each of us do, and
Mhm.
she is truly the queen of the home. And there's no doubt she
I
is
love
very
that.
opinionated. Yeah, and she's our little evangelist.
Yeah.
All through, as soon as she was able to start, she used to talk more than she does, but she would ask waitresses, "Do you have God in your heart?" She asked her neurologist, "Do you have God in your heart?" Well, that was a little awkward and kind of funny to watch. And so, and she still does it. And she has a heart for her love is so huge, and she has empathy for others. She has sees others with needs, and she wants to do something for them or about that.
Mm.
And so she is great for this ministry. She's going to be the leader, basically, in a lot of
Mm.
ways.
Oh, that's so awesome. I almost, think of the three of you being kind of the faith, hope, and love crew that you get to.
Yeah,
And I'm sure not only does Faith have her namesake Faith, it sounds like she's full of love and hope as well. And that's so beautiful.
hmm
So, in this adventure you're about to undertake and in your, explorations a few years ago of looking at what it would look like to be in South Africa, um, you mentioned the rural areas. You all have navigated the Denver metro area, pretty large, very well funded, group of cities and counties and suburbs. And, and you mentioned especially the heart for folks who are living with these, disabilities that are in a rural area in South Africa. Could you speak a little bit to, you mentioned earlier how a lot of these folks are not really seen. And could you speak a little bit more to that, whether that's in the rural areas or even sometimes just right in front of us, how they're not seen, or some of the specific challenges of what you all hope to be able to do in terms of helping these people in the rural communities?
Yeah, they in South Africa and other countries overall, people with disabilities are looked at as being cursed.
Mm.
The families are shamed, and they're ostracized many times. We had a friend call them the shadow people,
Mm.
as they really truly do not get out because of miscellaneous ways. They're unable. Oftentimes, the grannies or the grandmothers, the older moms take care of either their grown sons or grown children or their grandchildren, and so they're physically unable to move around as easily. Years ago, Faith was going to school in South Africa, and this mama would pack her son every day back and forth to school, several miles on her back, and he was almost as big as she was, and that was just what they did, and that's sort of like it is now. We went looking for people with disabilities, and
Mm.
we found one young gentleman right next door to where we living on the farm, and he was hurt in an accident, a car accident, and he was a paraplegic in a wheelchair.
Mm.
And he didn't have very many clothes. It was cold and he had no socks practically. He was living outdoors, and it was literally three pieces of tin put together with an open front area, like a
Mm.
lean-to. And his brother was the one still working, but he had no one to help him during the day to get into his chair or various things. And he told me he had some sores, and uh, and he couldn't go to town because there was no one to push him or get him to town. So he depended on others to bring him food and clothing, and plus not having money. So he was totally dependent,
Yeah.
and that was I was appalled. That was the worst housing I've ever seen in South Africa, if
Mm.
you want to call it housing. And
Yeah.
then in the rural areas, they just don't have I, maybe the knowledge or
Mm.
knowing how to access what they do have in South Africa. There are things that they can access to help them. There are other ministries, there's other groups that can help with wheelchairs and various things that they need. and we can connect them with people that can help them with the food, or not to make them more dependent, yet encourage them on the other side, where we're hoping that will help, where we come in. Anytime someone has a full belly, they'll listen to the gospel a little easier because their basic needs are being met, because you can't bring the gospel when they're missing out on basic needs. So part of our ministry will be compassion ministry, and walking alongside them. We feel like we could speak somewhat into their lives and understanding, because we are a family with a disability, and so we're hoping that that'll open some of the doors. And we have already started helping over there as far as ministry wise. There's a group home that is half long-term care, and the other building is for people with disabilities. And the woman divided them up by age, because there's older people have disabilities as they get older, of course. And then the other group was from 2 years old all the way to 64 years of age. So it was quite the span. And the housing was interesting. They had an outdoor toilet. They did not have a tub or a bath, any way to bathe the people. And I wondered how they got them to the toilet, actually, because it wasn't friendly to the trail. It was not easily traversed, and things like doors, but they were doing the best they could with what they had. And this woman, will be working with her again when we get there in South Africa. We'll use our contacts that we made previously to go out further, and that. So yeah, people don't want to see people with disabilities. I think it unnerves them, because that could be each and every one of us. That's part of it. The good part is, when we met Faith, I would see people with disabilities out begging in the streets, which they still are, but it was a huge number. But you didn't see children, and they were kept they were institutionalized until they were 18 years of age, and then they were just put out on the streets or back to their abusive homes. Because that's another thing. People with disabilities or children, they're very abused, sexual, they're trafficked, they're all of it. And so it's those, even like a double tragedy because of that people use and abuse them so much. However, on the other side, we did see some people with disabilities working in the city when we went, and that was exciting to see that they are progressing some, and yet so far back, and others somewhat like the States, we have progressed so far, but yet there's so many areas that remain inaccessible, and not only physical disabilities, but intellectual and that as well.
Yeah. Wow, that is such an eye-opening realization. Here we are in the 21st century, and there are some folks who are still facing, problems or being treated in ways that they would have been 2,000 years ago, just with a lack of compassion and understanding. And I love how, just if anyone wants to find out more, we're going to be pointing them to empoweredbeyondlimits.org. And I just spent some time before we started chatting, re-looking at your website, and I love your emphasis on dignity and just the worth of every person. Maybe that'd be a good place to kind of start wrapping up our conversation. Is just, could you talk to us about why it's so important to see, people, in our own homes and our own communities, and then across the globe as people who have, worth and value, and then, what message would you have for anyone who, just has a tug on their heart that says, I want to help people. I want to help people who are facing these, these disabilities of whatever kind they might be, whether it's a physical disability or it's an emotional struggle or, something like that. Could you share a little bit with us as we begin to wrap up our time on that area?
Yes, our dignity, we are all have the gift, I guess, of dignity, because we are the image of Christ. We were made in the image of God, and that by itself gives us that dignity. And the difference between dignity and respect is earned. and dignity is not. And that's why it's such a value that we stand on. And then as far as getting in touch with us, and if you see, you can do it. There's churches that do have ministries for just for people with disabilities, and that you check out your churches, and if not, ask them why they don't have a service or a ministry for people with disabilities. Not to separate them out, but to encourage them and empower them to be givers of service and to be in service for the Lord. And then we do have our website, as you mentioned, and it's empoweredbeyondlimits.org. And then if someone wants to give financially, we have text to give now, and the number is 833-499-1672. And you should be able to see that on our webpage as well. And then on the text to give, that was text to give, I apologize. And the online, just go to our website and I'll make sure it is there. And we go through a group called APLOS, and they're helping us with that. So, and then most of all, as I've told other people, they said, we can't give financially, but I said, well, we can't do anything without prayers, and God is our provider anyway. So, though we do ask for a financial partnership, more importantly, we ask for prayer partnership, and doing what you can in your own environment or your own community. But the prayers are invaluable to us, and we can't do it without.
Oh, that's so awesome. I would so strongly encourage anybody that's listening, whether you're listening to us in February of 2023 or you catch this in May of 2024 or somewhere beyond. I pray and hope that you would strongly look up empoweredbeyondlimits.org, see what Joel and Melissa and Faith are up to. They're not only going to need our prayer and our love and our support now, but they're going to need it 6 months from now, a year from now, when they're in the trenches. They're facing lots of obstacles, and we know that there's spiritual obstacles. We know that there's physical obstacles to be overcome. And so, Melissa, thank you so much for the chance just to have this hopeful conversation, this hope-filled conversation. Over the years, we've shared lots of laughter. We've cared for lots of people who needed to be seen with dignity. There's folks all over this world. There are grandparents, there are children, there are neighbors who are going through tough times, who may be dealing with a struggle that makes us uncomfortable, and we need to see them as worth loving. We need to see them as having worth as a human being. And so I love that Empowered Beyond Limits is teaching us that, not just with folks with these physical disabilities, but with other issues and concerns that might not be as popular to recognize or understand in this world. And Melissa, let you have the last word. Anything else that you want to make sure we mention today, and then we'll sign off.
Well, as I've said before, what our mission is, and that our main mission is we connect lives and build communities. It's not about just us, it's about what God is doing through us, and we can't do it without people. And that's what we want to do, is build up and empower people with disabilities and their loved ones to do for themselves and to grow and be shown the gospel, not only in word, but in deed.
Absolutely. Well, friends, you'll see in the show notes that we'll have empoweredbeyondlimits.org listed there. Highly, highly encourage you to give to them if you are able to. Even $5 goes a long way. But most importantly, your prayers. Again, whether it's now as this is going live, whether it's 6 months from now or 6 years from now, somebody stumbles across our conversation. I pray that they would. I pray that they'd even say a prayer in 6 years from now for Joel and Faith and Melissa and their family as they go out on this adventure. And we'll be updating everybody through the Hope Connection Facebook group as an opportunity to also share this amazing message of love and faith and hope that is going abroad. And that's really the awesome thing about the Hope Connection, is we are a group of people, of just everyday people, nurses and doctors and teachers and preachers and grannies and grandpas and the retired and just the tired. We're just a little bit of everybody who are out there trying to bring hope to the hurting and the love of Jesus to a world that's dying without hope. So thank you again, Melissa. At the end of every podcast, I've just been sharing a blessing, and I'd love to just share this blessing for you and your family. And it's from Romans chapter 15. And it says, "May the God of all hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." So,
Amen.
friends, give Melissa and Joel and Faith a big shout out. Go to their website, look them up, send them words of encouragement and love and your prayers. And Melissa, reach out, let me know how things are going when you get over there. I'll try to keep an eye out for you guys, and we'll look forward to sharing updates with everybody as we go.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure to have this conversation and so good to catch up. We'll look forward to catching up with you soon, Melissa. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye now.